Anyway, that's why you need to moisturize, because it gets all dry and puffy if you don't. So, Dane, for episode number 113, I was thinking Culture Corner will do Cristiano Ronaldo. A favorite of both of us, let's not lie.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, big fan. Meeting with Jordan Peterson and getting canceled for it. If only we had a hot take on that. Epstein didn't kill himself. I was thinking Biden's diminishing returns of cognition. Maybe just touching on it, and then
I could get down.
For the main, obviously, we're gonna have to go further into the Biden interview in the 60 Minutes, and Lord Biden himself saying the PANDY is over. You can go outside, children. Enjoy your lives. So
until we say otherwise.
Until we decide that we're gonna make money off of something else that we're gonna terrorize you with. Anyway, does that sound good?
I think that sounds like a doozy of a show. I think we should get to it.
Let's go.
Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 113, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/113. You can find it on any podcast app. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can also find the videos on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and you can link up with us on Twitter and Instagram. And as of us finding out not 5 minutes before we hit play on this show...
Really threw us off our fucking rhythm, by the way.
You cannot find us on TikTok. We apologize for the original 10.5 thousand fans that we had on our first account, which, as we've told you in the past, got shadow banned. We just found out that our second account has also been banned, which was close to 7,000 or 8,000 before it got banned. And this time, instead of just banning that one, they apparently linked our two accounts and completely banned both, such that we can't even find them to sign in anymore. Our video guy logged in to try to put another clip up for you loving and adoring fans and found out that we were banned for, quote, violation or repeated violation of TikTok community guidelines. David, how are those community guidelines over there on TikTok?
You need to tell me the app that I can watch someone get nuked on really banned us for words. You're telling me I can watch someone get shot in broad daylight by a gang-on-gang violence and we got banned for words. You're telling me that an app that a 12-year-old can dance her little tuchus off to the admiration of any 40-year-old that cares to watch the video long enough and sexualize herself at such a young age, they'll allow that. But us having a problem with the way our country is being run, and is running at this current moment, just words saying that we are displeased, got us kicked off.
Indeed. Again, not just shadow banned on the second account as they did for the first account, but outright complete banning of both accounts.
Well, I've been looking for a reason to remove.
We said too many unsayable words.
Well, if only. And the funny thing about TikTok is they're hearing all the other words that we're saying because TikTok, as we all know, is just getting your data. So anyway,
which,
fuck you very much, TikTok. We're going to make another one out of spite.
Yes.
It'll just be a bunch of dick pics and us dancing to the who's finna, who's finna, or what's that? Do, 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 do. Yeah, that's the new fun one.
Yeah.
What a fucking platform.
The key takeaway for you viewers and listeners who were also followers of our TikTok page, again, thank you for your service in the past. We will come back. I don't know if bigger, better, stronger again, but we will rebuild.
I didn't hear no bell.
we will make our TikTok great again. We will tell you, obviously, here.
Can't say that, Dane. Now we're a part of the MAGA movement.
No.
They're going to cancel us before we even make it.
We're MTTGA. Oh, that's kind of like maggots.
No, not maggots.
No, I know.
said MAGA.
I know.
Well,
I'm saying
okay.
maggots for the Slipknot connection.
Right outside of. I wanted to make the shot.
The frame.
It's just outside of the frame. There's a poster of Slipknot.
David's a big Slipknot fan. I like Slipknot as well.
They're sliding a little bit, as does every band, but you know.
Okay. Well, without getting too far off track, the key takeaways are we got banned.
Fucked.
We got banned for we don't even know what at this point. Our video guy is going to do some research, maybe contact our TikTok overlords and say which video was it? What did we say? Because if you'll remember from the first shadow banning, that was related to our conversation surrounding COVID. And so we strictly stayed away from that commentary on the second account and still got banned. So we don't know what we did. He'll let us know if and when he finds anything.
Can we add
out.
our two TikToks to the Clinton body count?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think we're going to have to.
But we will try to come back. We will give you more details as we have them. And stay tuned to this space and other places that you like, follow, subscribe, and share our content for information related to where we're going to, our next little whack-a-mole pop-up is going to be on the TikTok
we're going to name
platform itself.
Memes of weapons destruction.
They'll never see that one coming.
They'll be
and
like,
then it's going to be our logo, except upside down. It'll totally throw them off.
They have no
It's like glasses on Superman.
Kidneys.
So with that being said, you can find us at all those places with the exception of TikTok. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, join the conversation, share us with friends and family, all that good stuff that we know you are doing to this point because that was bad news. Here's the good news. I was looking at YouTube the other day.
Good news?
We are up to 98 subscribers on YouTube. On YouTube. We are just about to cross the century mark. So when we do that, we're going to celebrate with you, friends and family, because we know you're the ones spreading the word about us. And for that, we thank you.
I would have saved that for the off-air meeting that we have with our whole staff each and every week.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people brag about 100 people. But what I will say,
listen, it's a milestone for us.
After being 141st podcast in Australia, this is right up there.
Listen,
it was almost as good.
My most immediate goal is to get more subscribers on YouTube than we have episodes out. Okay?
That would be awesome. That would be super awesome.
We want to average
I feel like it's
a subscriber per episode.
Well, if it gets to that like 100 monkeys thing, like once 99 monkeys know it, then all of a sudden it spreads. That kind
exactly.
of thing. So maybe it's that number that we need to break. But
yes.
All right.
So before
98, the fighting 98.
Before we get into the culture corner, I have one other thing that is not necessarily related to this podcast, but I've mentioned on this podcast several times that I am a follower and fan of the Tom Woods Show, another podcast. And he recently had on Scott Horton, who, if you don't know Scott, please look him up. He is the foreign policy guru for all freedom-loving people, not just libertarians. And he is helping to push an initiative that I can guarantee you, whether you are a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren lefty, or you're a MAGA Republican, you can get behind this initiative. And it is to stop the war in Yemen. And the two places I want to direct you to for that are the website of 833stopwar.com, or you can call the number 1-833-stopwar.com, and that will link you with your representative in your area to call your congressman, call your senator, and tell them to support these two bills, House Resolution 87, as well as Senate Resolution 56, which, remember the Sanders-Warren thing? The Senate resolution was put forward by Senators Sanders, Leahy, and Elizabeth Warren, and the House resolution was put forward by Representative Jayapal, DeFazio, Schiff, and Mace.
Wow.
And here's the thing. The quick and dirty, please listen to Scott on this. Please listen to other people much more knowledgeable.
What episode was it again?
What episode what?
Of Tom Woods, was it?
I don't know that one off the top of my head. We will put it in the show notes as well as on the description underneath this if you're watching the video. I'll link to that episode in particular so you can hear Scott Horton talk about the war in Yemen and the ongoing humanitarian crisis that is being unnecessarily facilitated by the United States and Saudi Arabia. And these resolutions invoking the War Powers Act is, to put it in a nutshell, Congress exerting its authority as the representative body in the United States government to tell the president to stop this ongoing, unconstitutional, undeclared war in Yemen and stop facilitating the ongoing genocide happening there. I can guarantee you, as Scott says, that nobody you know supports this war. This is a completely unjustifiable in every respect possible. And this is a good cause that people of all goodwill, regardless of where they find themselves on the political spectrum, they can get behind. So please do that.
And what is Yemen also known for? The biggest slave trade in the world at the current date, too?
No, I believe that was Libya.
Oh, Libya.
Another one of America's shining foreign policy successes.
Right.
You know, they go on top of the government.
There is a slave trade going on over in Yemen, though, right? Or am I
I don't know
sorely
about.
mistaken?
I don't know about that.
Well, I swung and a missed.
But you know, the fundamental takeaway is this is an atrocity. It's terrible. It's the worst thing going on in the world today. And to any extent that you can personally contribute to that cause is certainly much appreciated by the people in Yemen, of course, but also your humble co-host here at Weapons of Mass Destruction. So with that simple request, we are jumping into the episode. David, the Culture Corner. You mentioned something about the GOAT himself.
The GOAT.
Mr. Cristiano Ronaldo.
The real Ronaldo. CR7.
Even though he was second to to R9, you know, we digress. A little bit inside baseball for you non-soccer fans. But Cristiano Ronaldo, that's who we're talking about. David, why are we talking about him?
Because he's awesome. No, because he met with another fucking Neanderthal, like basic thinker, knuckle dragger, just wants to see the world burn. Jordan Peterson. And apparently we don't know what the fuck they said. Did you see an interview? Did you see anything with them going over what they were talking about or anything?
No. So the only thing I saw on social media, and then which this obviously made the rounds, is Ronaldo posted a picture of himself with Jordan Peterson. And the caption he wrote on it was something to the effect of, "Nice to meet with my friend." Or he used endearing terms. And obviously they're taking a picture together. They're friendly. Whatever they talked about doesn't matter. But Cristiano was not ashamed to link his image and likeness, as globally popular as that is, with that of Jordan Peterson. And for that, dear friends and family, he is Hitler adjacent, apparently.
Okay. So the guy that... all he does is try to help you clean your room, get your life in order. And I'm speaking about Jordan Peterson, the guy that just propagates like self-worth and knowing yourself, even though it's harder, you have to do the hard things sometimes. Yeah, I've never heard him said one vitriolic thing in his bombastic nature on social media or any media, pretty much. He's a psychiatrist or psychologist? I think he's a psychiatrist. I want to say psychiatrist, but I don't know if he can write pen and paper. But anyway, basically, he's got years and years of therapy under his belt.
Maybe a sociologist.
I don't think he is. I think he's a psychologist.
I'll look it up.
Please, you have the interwebs on your side. I've got my fucking brain, which is not to be relied upon. Clearly with the Yemen thing. All I've ever heard him try to do is make other people's lives better by giving them the hard, cold facts. And nowadays, it's not nice. But apparently, he's spoken out against a lot of wokeness, which is how he got known in the beginning. Is that he had an interview with a feminist and just eviscerated all of her standpoints to the point of no return. And that's where the left started to dislike him. And since then, he's only doubled down and tripled down on his standpoint, all the while not sounding like a lunatic, not going over the bounds, not stepping over anything. But he said, just to the point, you can't control my speech. I will basically, Canada passed a referendum saying you have to call people by their pronouns that they choose. And he said, that's not freedom then. You're controlling my language and I won't do it. If I respect the person, I will, and I want them to like, well, not even long. If I respect the person, if I want to, I will respect their wishes if they ask me to do it. But you cannot tell me as a government what I can and cannot say and what is legal and not legal that comes out of my mouth. That's his standpoint. And that's the real reason they have a problem with him.
Right. To close the loop on his profession, he is a clinical psychologist, author, and professor emeritus at University of Toronto. But yes, no, David is absolutely right that it's not necessarily what Jordan Peterson has said. It is what he has refused to say that makes him pretty much the worst person on earth to a lot of people. It's definitely to the people who would cancel Cristiano Ronaldo simply for associating himself with Jordan in so much as a simple photograph and calling him his friend. And really, I mean, need we say more about the depths of depravity that this whole cultural momentum has gone in this particular direction? That you can completely hate somebody for refusing to mindlessly regurgitate whatever is the popular or approved talking point of the day, but then you can also extend that out to anybody who chooses to voluntarily put themselves in that person's orbit.
If only that carried over into other aspects. You know, like if you're on a plane 27 times with a known pedophile to fly to an island to fuck a bunch of kids. If only you were one of the world's top fucking billionaires and have been associated with somebody that was known for pedophilia. If only we held those people accountable for what they had done while they were doing it.
If only, you know, you happen to have upwards of 30 at our last count, people that were known to you or in your close circle that had disappeared or died under less than clear circumstances. You know, if you were those type of people, maybe a sane world might quote unquote cancel you. But no, this world chooses to cancel you if you refuse to call somebody, you know, by a completely ridiculous pronoun that has no basis in reality or anything like that. You know, I would say that the world or the society that does these things while choosing not to do these things to those other people that David and I are alluding to is not a healthy society. And we are definitely in that cycle of good times creating weak men. And we're in the latter part of that weak men cycle because...
or maybe if somebody broke a law...
It's getting ugly out there.
A federal law and funded a research that was federally restricted, and then that research just so happened to sneak out of whatever research laboratory it was in, and maybe caused the whole world to go into lockdown for 2 years, under your auspices, by the way, because you're the leading... How is he the leading knowledge person in this? Because he knows the most, because he was directly involved in it. If we held those people accountable a little bit more often, maybe we'd be a little more genuine with our cancellations rather than just taking a picture with somebody that says things that we don't like to hear.
Or maybe the son of a former vice president and current president who not only sold access to his father while his father was vice president, but also is on film many times doing illicit drugs that his father spent a career throwing people in cages for, sometimes with underage prostitutes. Oh, and lying on federal applications to get a firearm because he's a felon. You know, maybe if society chose to live by some of those ancient, wise, you know, just kind of measuring sticks, right? To whom much is given, much is expected. You know, if we held those who had so much power to actually exercise it responsibly, exactly, to a higher standard, might we not end up with the current clusterfuck of a world that we currently live in? Maybe, but you know what? We only have so many resources, as we say on this podcast all the time. Resources are scarce, and they definitely need to be overweight in favor of canceling people for refusing to say certain things. That's who we should focus on canceling. But, you know, David and I could go on and on all day about these individuals who shall, or maybe they are not, remaining nameless, depending on your...
We didn't use any words, right?
I don't think we said a single person's name, but I don't think we did either. I think it's crystal clear.
Except for Epstein, but his name's on the... Of course. It's on the goddamn...
He's in every show.
Yeah, that guy.
So suffice it to say, David and I, we do not approve, okay? We cancel the people who cancel Cristiano Ronaldo for having the audacity to take a picture with Jordan Peterson.
And
you're canceled. All 98 of our YouTube subscribers.
Never questioned the GOAT, okay? He knows. All right, Cristiano, we got your back. You're the real Ronaldo. Keep scoring them goals for the Manx. All right, love you. Hopefully you go deep in the World Cup. And Jordan, you just keep doing what you're doing. Our
That's
98 subscribers are behind you.
That's right, baby. So with that being said, moving on to segment 2, Epstein. I've done that before.
It's okay. It's episode
Why do I want to say Epstein? Why do I
want to say Epstein?
Why do I want to do that?
Episode a lot.
Okay.
Leading into it.
Okay, I should stop doing that.
No, keep doing it. It's just
sometimes
it's a little humanity.
Sometimes you get your words all mixed up.
Human moment. It's a human moment.
It's authenticity for the show.
Right, exactly.
And Epstein did not kill himself. We are talking the emperor lacking clothes in the concept of, or within the context of, the president being just a figurehead. And obviously Biden serves as the foil, as he is the current president. But it's a particular thing about Biden, which is really demonstrating this point that we want to call your attention to.
Can I add a little context to this?
You can. I'll allow
it. Bear in mind. Oh, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of this supposed jury. What I will say is, let's not forget, I know it's really easy because there's a lot of kerfuffle nowadays. Let's not forget, in the Dems' panic to get some leverage of impeachability, would that even be is that a word? Did I just invent that?
I'll allow that as well.
Okay, thank you, Constable. Your Honor.
Whether it's a word or not, it's allowed.
Okay. They were coming at every angle at Trump to try to find something they could get him on. But he's like the Teflon Don trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. You're never going to get it. You know what I mean? But one of their angles was they said that he should be impeached because he's not mentally suitable for the job, because they believed that he had, what were they saying that he had? Alzheimer's? Because he would lean forward and he spoke in grandiose terms but didn't have really anything to say. You know, those kind of subjective things that you can kind of attribute to any person over a given age. So with all of that being said, Dane, I hand it over to you. I posit to you, prove to me more that Biden is more cognitively diminished than Trump was.
Well, I mean, I choose not to even try to make that case because I choose to live in reality where I think most people live. Even the people who think Biden is doing a great job, and we'll get to more of that in a second.
Bless your
Even
heart.
to the people who think that Trump is, and sincerely and honestly hold the belief that Trump is Hitler reincarnate. Even those people, I think if you got them to just sit down and have a beer with you and just say, take the politics out of it, just look at the man.
Or a kombucha.
Just listen to the man. Do you honestly think that that man has the cognitive ability to run the most powerful nation on earth? Presuming that, you think that the president has that sort of authority in his office, regardless of whether it's constitutional or not quibbling about that. Do you think that with that much power, he has the cognitive ability to stay on top of everything and get it done? Now, he'll tell you all up and down 60 Minutes that he does.
He did, and he fumbled over that as well.
But again, I think if you're being honest and trying to be as objective as humanly possible, setting aside your biases for or against the guy, you got to admit he's not all there. And the thing that
It's not stuttering, by the way. That's not stuttering. He can't find his fucking thoughts mid-sentence. Stop saying it's stuttering. Stop saying he has a speech impediment. You're only hurting yourself at this point. You're not seeing reality.
But the thing that I think is his lack of cognitive ability is really a blessing in disguise. Because, listen, when you are a libertarian and most people hate you or think you're kind of weird or an outlier or whatever, and most people can find a reason to disagree with you, whether they're left or right, you have to kind of build a thick skin and you have to look for silver linings wherever you can find them. And I think that the silver lining of Biden being president and having that diminished cognitive capacity is, whether he wants to or not, he's ripping off the mask and dispensing with all pretense for those people who still believe that this quote unquote democracy elects the president, and then the president, operates on behalf of the American people who elected him. Because again, even if he wanted to, he just can't pull it off. He doesn't have the mental capacity for it. Now, as libertarians, as anybody who has a skeptical eye towards the state constantly growing and expanding in power all the time, as we always say, is that it seems rather weird that regardless of who gets the Tom Woods rule of thumb is that no matter who you elect, you always wind up with John McCain. How is it that Republican or Democrat or any variation thereof, no matter who the president is, there's always more war, there's always more handouts to the big corporate connected cronies, there's always more regulation, there's always more everything? How would that be with these presidents that are seemingly diametrically opposed, if not for a permanently entrenched bureaucracy that none of us have any say in voting in or out, actually running the show? Now, if you're more of the Trump mindset, you would call this the deep state, but you need not invoke that imagery to just say, yeah, it's rather strange that Obama and George W. Bush are supposed to be completely different, and yet they wound up with the same policies in effect, definitely in terms of the war machine. How does that happen, if not for the fact that this permanently entrenched bureaucracy is really running the show and not the guy who's elected?
Well, you don't really need to look any further than just the money in politics. Like, money and politics go hand in hand like a piss and a fart. Like, you can't really separate either one of them. So it's a tough pill to swallow when you realize that like you said, does your vote really count? And you're saying it over and over, like, my vote counts. I get a say in my government. I get a say in which direction my country goes. But when you come down to the brass tacks of it, like, do you? Does your money carry more of a vote? Where you put it carry more of a vote than your actual vote? Your direct pen on paper, I want this for my country. I'd argue the latter. I'd argue that your money, where you put it, what's going on with it, how you choose to live your life, has way more of a vote than any pen and any paper than you could ever sign away. Unless it's a contract, obviously, which Constable over here would know better than me. But what I am saying is, like, again, it's growing up. It's believing that there aren't superheroes, but there can be super people in a given circumstance. When you start identifying, for my own vernacular, when you start identifying more with the Joker than you do with the Batman. Like, when you start seeing what the world really is, then you can actually, it's depressing to see it, but it's also, it gives you power because now you know how to work within it. Like, you vote every day. You vote every minute, which is a powerful thing if you think about it. Where you put your money in this country, where you choose to put your body, where you choose to put your onus, where you choose to live, all these things, you make decisions every day and it predicts where this country goes. So, with that being said, our destabilized president in office right now, placating the masses that he is in charge, when if you ask somebody in a cold, dark room with nobody else around, no mics, no cameras, no nothing, do you really think that he's okay? I bet you fucking over at least 70% of America would say, no, I don't think he's okay.
Right. Only the most diehard,
well, the religious cult. We'll just call them the radical left. If they're willing to terrorize the MAGA right, they're the radical left. They're the terrorist on the left. So, again, like, just
to use Biden's words, not
to use Biden's word. Heaven forbid I use our own words, because we'll get kicked off of this platform wherever you're watching us. There.
It's nice knowing you folks.
But that's the here's your wake up call. Here's you becoming an adult. If this is the first time you've ever heard it, let me reiterate. Your money and your choices day to day have more of a weight of vote than your actual vote does on election day.
Right. And, here's the Epstein moment. I'll just give just a couple examples of this happening all throughout American history, because this is not a new phenomenon. There was the example of Woodrow Wilson getting elected in 1916, in large part on a campaign of he kept us out of war in Europe, so, give him a second term. And then he gets elected in 1916 and boom, right off the war, America goes. Or FDR saying that he was going to remain neutral as things were starting to heat up leading up to World War II, but was pushing Lend-Lease to the extent that he was just trying to antagonize the Axis powers up to and including the ultimate bombing at Pearl Harbor, which then drew the American people in. Or what about an alleged political outsider like Ronald Reagan, who said all of the things about limited government and I'm going to correct this growing leviathan that's happening in DC, and yet he walks out of office in 1988 with larger deficits than any president in history. Or how about George W. Bush, who campaigned on what he called, quote, compassionate conservatism. He was going to go around the world and basically, kind of massage democracy here, there, or whatever. But he was going to kind of pull back on the America empire and stuff like that after the bad taste of the Clinton administration using NATO in Bosnia. And, George W. Bush says, I'm not going to do that anymore. Lo and behold, the war on terror. And then you have Obama, who campaigns on hope and change. He's going to change all of the things about the George W. Bush administration that a lot of people were very upset about, not the least of which the Iraq War. And then Obama comes into office and becomes the droner-in-chief and expands the war on terror and makes it more clandestine all around the world, et cetera, et cetera. And so what this brief trot across history should amply demonstrate to you is that all throughout American history, the nominal figurehead of the United States government, the president, is not in control. And yes, the bureaucracy is more entrenched and tougher to dig out today than it was at the turn of the 20th century when Woodrow Wilson was president. But the fact remains the same, is that you don't get a vote for these people. And these people are calling the shots. How would all of those different presidents that I just mentioned to you with vastly different views of the world, vastly, at least according to what they campaigned on, vastly different principles, et cetera, how does it always wind up being that the policies push in the direction of more power to the government, more money to the war machine, more handouts to the politically corrected cronies, more of a power and financial gap between those individuals and the American people who they allegedly represent? And yet you get no say in most of the shot callers behind the scenes.
And if you think we're being tin hatty right now, just remember in 2016? When they elected Trump?
Yes.
Okay. Who won the Democratic Party nomination?
Hillary.
Who won it?
Oh, Bernie.
Bernie won the nomination. But then they skirted the nomination and put Hillary in place anyway. So your mind has already been made up. And they did that in front of everyone and didn't really have to explain it away. No one said, what are you talking about? If this is democracy, then he should be on the fucking stadium.
That election wasn't stolen, according to them.
No.
Not even according to him, Bernie himself.
He stepped down and then he ran again. And he's still a Democrat. And he's still pushing the same... If you think for a second that any of this, that it works the way it's supposed to, here's your red pill moment. Dane, nail it home.
And so that's the thing. It's again, that's not even tinfoil. I just gave you historical, factual examples that you can look up for yourself. But the next time you're at a party and you want to toss out there that, I really don't think that the elected representatives or president or anybody else that we check a name off in a ballot box, I really don't think they're in control. I think there might be this shadowy group of people behind the scenes who are actually calling the shots, or else why do the policies always push in the same direction no matter who's elected? When you drop that bomb on somebody and people get a burr up their saddle and they get so angry and how dare you question the integrity of our democracy? Well, now you have tons of historical examples to give them to show them that they're the ones that are living in fantasy land,
just the top of
not
our
you
heads.
for seeing the reality for what it is.
It's just not the top of our heads.
So, thank you, Biden, for being so cognitively deficient that it is pulling the mask off, because how else would this machine keep rolling on if he was really the buck stopping with him? He's calling all the shots when he can barely figure out whether or not he got out of bed in the morning or pooped his pants or not.
Is it fucked up that I feel more comfortable with that right now?
What, knowing
that there's actual like cognitive people that are capable of higher thought making decisions rather than when I woke up today I had a fruit salad and then I walked my cat outside with the dog and he was named Rover and that reminds me of a boy that I was back in 1984. I remember Rover.
I'm going to political doublespeak and say, David, no, I'm not going to tell you what you should think, but you should not be heartened by that at all.
I'm so happy my corporate overlords are running this country instead of that fucking imbecile.
It would be much better if he was actually calling the shots.
Yeah.
Because then he would have national policies that
give us hope.
Like everybody gets pudding for
pudding. Like just
for a midday snack. He would enact that legislation.
With this new bill, every 3:00 p.m. is nap time with cookies and milk. It's like best president ever.
That would be a much better world.
That would be, dude. If he could pass that law tomorrow, I'll skip the cookies and milk, give it to my neighbor. But
you might be willing to overlook the rampant inflation.
Yeah. At least he'd be bettering my life somehow.
Right. So listen, I hope that after this segment, any pretenses you had left about the credibility of the integrity of our elections and who's actually in control here, I hope that's dispensed with. But to any extent it's not, I invite you to look into it yourself and see what kind of puzzle pieces you can put together. But
so now that we're done lambasting Biden, can we go to the next subject where we lambaste Biden?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Listen, the man, if nothing else, is great fodder for this here podcast.
He's firing on all cylinders in all directions.
So as of the day we record this, I believe, what is this, the 23rd? Friday.
Year of our Lord 2022.
Friday, September 23rd, 2022. A couple days after, or actually, I think it was this past Sunday, so more than a couple days ago.
Almost a week.
Biden was on 60 Minutes. And he talked about many, many things. None of them coherent. But one thing that he did talk about in particular that we'd like to talk about on this episode is his declaration
of independence.
As if almost possessing the power of the almighty creator himself to just wave his hand and say, the pandemic is over. I have, in very Michael Scott fashion, he has declared
bankruptcy!
Michael, I'm not sure that's how that works.
It's not.
So, in much the same fashion.
He who must not be named on this podcast, will you pull up that while I'm saying it? So you can overlay
insert it here.
Insert it right
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah,
I don't know why I just looked at David's camera.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's a shitty angle.
They're not
for you.
gonna,
that angle.
I know, but that angle is going to show me looking at the wrong angle. It's going to be like, what's he looking at?
But that's the only angle that you got.
So yes, that is what Biden effectively did on 60 Minutes by declaring the pandemic over. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, guys, you've been banging this drum basically since March of 2020. Aren't you happy about this? Of course we are. But what's funny is that this particular situation...
It's like sleeping with a girl that you wanted to sleep with for so many years, and then she was really shitty in bed. Fuck.
I was hoping... I'm glad that's all the further you went with it, because I really thought you were going to get more descriptive, and I'm glad you didn't. And I'm kind of regretting that I'm saying this now, because I'm giving you ideas.
The devil's in the deets. Devil's in the deets.
So yes, we are happy that this declaration has been made. But as we pointed out all throughout the pandemic, is that despite all of the protestations that people like David and I were the ones that were, quote unquote, not with the science, or we were hashtag science deniers, or we were all sort of, grandma killers. You know this stuff. You were here for that.
By the way, on a more subtle note, you should get your protestation checked out every year after about 50.
Hey, don't mock me. That's a real word.
You don't want a protestation cancer.
we were saying that the whole time, and we were constantly called science deniers or whatever. Now, the last time I checked, and as Biden himself said throughout the entire campaign and also while he was in office, is that he's not a scientist, so he's going to defer to the experts on all kinds of different policy prescriptions. Yet, he can just sit there on 60 Minutes and say, pandemic over, which I then read after the fact. Many White House pandemic response advisors were completely caught off guard by this, and they were very nervous. Now, presumably, if they're White House pandemic response advisors, they are the quote-unquote experts.
Shit.
So His Royal Highness
Was
Biden
it funded
the
by
First.
Pfizer by any chance? Who's signing their paychecks?
I believe Pfizer's very upset at Biden about this. I cannot confirm, but
I'm pretty goddamn sure.
But His Royal
I heard
Highness,
the collective fuck from
our money.
Their corporate headquarters.
Is His Royal Highness Joe the First has just declared that the pandemic is not a thing anymore. And so listen.
So quick after the death of the Queen, you son of a bitch.
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that's not how science works. I'm pretty sure that it was the Fauciites who told us all throughout COVID that the pandemic is not political. You are making it political. Despite the fact that, they wanted anybody who didn't agree with them to be punished politically and sometimes in actuality up to and including concentration camps, et cetera, et cetera.
Up to getting fired.
But all of the hypocrisies aside, we just thought that was rather funny that Joe just basically...
It was never really a thing to begin with, and I don't even know why we did anything about it, you know what I mean? Like, 2 years. 2 years, Joseph. Mind if I call you Joseph? I'm going to call you it anyway. Mr. President Joseph, we're in a real sticky situation right now because of this little pandy. And if you just come out on 60 Minutes while you're walking through a gallery of cars, by the way, very fine cars, because you had to be there for what fucking reason exactly? With the war in Yemen that we're talking about, with the global destabilization, with the power struggle between Russia, China, and us at the current moment, you decided to go to a car show. All that being said, and notwithstanding, you just took it on your own to say that the pandy is over.
Could have done that a long time ago.
What's changed?
To harken back to the Epstein segment, David, tell me what's changed. If Joe's really calling the shots and he says it's over, David?
I feel like he's not all there, but he's sneaky and he's slippery. So like when Secret Service is like, all right, we got the eye on the eagle. He is moving towards, oh shit, he just stubbed oh fuck. He's got toilet paper on his shoe. All right, so somebody get that off him before. So I feel like they thought he was in the Oval Office. And he like pried open one of those windows and went to talk to Matt Lauer on who's the guy that interviewed him?
I think it was Scott Pelley.
All right, Scott Pelley.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
One of the 60. He went to talk to his old friend down at 60 Minutes and talk about the old days. Anyway, and I feel like he felt free and he didn't have a teleprompter to misread. And I feel like he said some real shit that was in his heart. And I feel like you could hear all the collective buttholes of every Democratic politician go on Sunday when all that shit came out. And I think all of the things that you hear now, I'm sure whatever press secretary, is that what she's called, is saying all the vernacular that she has to say there. Well, it's not over, but we have to be on guard. And you can already see the playbook. They're going to come out. They're going to say, well, you can't turn your back. The pandemic's over. The initial wave of the pandemic is over. But if we drop our guard, if we don't get vaccinated, if we don't get every thumb shoved up our butt to make sure we don't have COVID, then it might come back. And it's going to be 10 times worse. We can't prove any of that. But we're going to tell you that it's going to be so we can make more profit off of your fear, which is what... Oh, I said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say that.
I was in the role. I absorbed
This
it.
is probably what got us kicked off of TikTok.
Probably.
Saying that kind of stuff.
Probably. Definitely not showing my butthole to everybody.
But listen, I got to say, for those of you blue no matter who folks who cheered Biden's election because at least he wasn't orange man bad, here's a fundamental conundrum that he's just recently placed you in that, listen, we can't do this for you, and God knows you wouldn't listen to us even if we tried. You're going to have to make this decision for yourself. Either Joe is in control and completely contrary to following #the science. Because,
may God help us.
Because president is neither knowledgeable enough, nor is he godly enough to be able to just declare the end of a pandemic and then therefore make it so. And if that's the case, then your guy, who was much, much better than Orange Man Bad, has decided to politicize the pandemic. And you ask me how that's the case? Well, because he sees what the poll numbers are. Poll numbers as unreliable as they are, he sees his approval rating plummeting. And the man so desperately, desperately needs a win as the midterms close in. And what better win can you get than to go into November saying, I ended the pandemic under my administration? So, in complete contravention of following the science, he has chosen to make a shrewd, political, calculated move and just declare the pandemic over because he cares more about his political success and the successes of his party than he does about your health and safety. Or the other solution, the other rock between that hard place that you are put in,
maybe, just maybe,
is that it doesn't matter what Joe says on 60 Minutes, because as David and I have just been alluding to, I still haven't seen any repeal of the mandate for vaccination for military members. I haven't seen any of those healthcare workers that were fired for refusing to get the shot. I haven't seen rushes to reemploy them. I haven't seen any sort of apologies for making second-class citizens out of millions of people for choosing which medical procedure to get or not get. I haven't seen any return of fines to people who were fined for refusing to wear a piece of cloth over their face, despite the fact that in the middle of the pandemic, CDC Director Walowinski said that a cloth face mask is nothing more than a facial decoration. I haven't seen changes or apologies for any of those policies. So either Joe's a shrewd political calculator who avoids the science when it's not politically expedient, or he's not calling the shots.
But you know what
that all the people responsible for those actual policies are going to keep going and pushing them and never going to apologize for the life-altering, world-destroying policies that they put in place in the first place. That's for you to decide. Find the nearest mirror in your house. Take a long, hard look.
But you know what I have seen, Dane? Students not being allowed to return to school without a vaccine in their arm. And then in other states, students are allowed to return to school, but they can only go to class if they don't have a vaccine. That means no extracurricular activities.
They can only go to class.
If they don't.
Oh, yeah. I got you. They can go to class, but they can't do fun stuff. You know, the things that make school remotely bearable.
Right.
Or, not school, the public indoctrination.
The thing that makes you a great person. The thing, all the other shit other than them just forcing their rhetoric down your throat. You know, the thing that makes you an individual. You can't go out and do any of those because you're not vaccinated. Please explain that to me. I can sit in a fucking classroom with 30 other children, but I cannot play out in the sun with 9 other children. Social distancing, by the way. If I'm playing baseball, I'm super socially distant.
Except when you're in the dugout.
Even then, I'm going to stand over here while the other guy's chewing on tobacco and spitting over his friend's shoe. That's a good way to spread COVID. All I'm saying is that none of these things are still making sense. Let me take that back. These things are still not making sense. That's a better way to phrase it. Like, you keep saying out of one side of your mouth that, well, it's pretty much over. But then out of the other side of your mouth, we're going to make all these rules that it makes it impossible for you to live your life the way you want to live it without getting our shot. So our shot, at this point, would you even be shocked to find out it's water? Would you be at all surprised to find out that none of those, by the way, that vaccine that they're shoving into your arm nowadays, don't worry, It's totally safe for you. It's been tested on 8 mouses. Mices. So most of those 8 mouses are pretty good. One of them might be dead. But we're not focusing on that. We've done the due diligence. We followed the science. 7 of the 8 mice survived. So give that to your 5-year-old. What part of any of this makes any fucking sense when you say it out loud? Get that mirror, say all these things out loud back to yourself, and then record your reaction with your phone.
And I mean, listen, as the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So if after all of that, you humor us by at least trying to be rational with yourself, you still come to the same conclusion that these were just humble public servants trying to do their best for you. And yeah, they were faced with a tough situation and they did the best they could. And it had nothing to do with, political motivations or trying to pad their pockets or any sort of other non-health and safety related motivations.
They had your best interests in mind.
If you want to come to that conclusion, albeit fair, fine. Maybe this podcast isn't for you. You're welcome here, but maybe we're just not your cup of tea. But we hope for those of you who, whether you agreed with us then, or maybe you change your mind now, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle, or you still want to give us an honest hearing, but still agree to disagree with us, encourage friends and family to do the same thing. Because the only way to get out of this clown world that we're currently in, whether it's related to COVID or canceling people for taking pictures with Jordan Peterson or anything else we talk about on this podcast, it's going to take a lot of critical thinking and it's going to take a lot of self-work because other people can't think for you. Despite the fact that it seems easy to delegate your critical thinking to other people and say, well, my better said so I better do it and I better mindlessly regurgitate it or I'm not going to be in the in crowd. Despite the fact that that's easier to do, reality will catch up with you eventually, and it's catching up with all of us hella quick. And so if we're going to right this ship in any way, shape, or form before the whole thing burns to the ground, and we are forced into self-reliance, we are forced into thinking for ourselves because the institutions have crumbled around us, before it gets to that point, if you're worried that that's going to be some sort of dystopia, Mad Max style, terrible future, then you better start thinking for yourself now. And you better start looking at reality for what it is, because you can either embrace it as it is now and work on fixing it ahead of time, or it catches you later with your pants down. I suggest that whether you're left, right, or center, or agnostic to politics completely, that you fix it before it happens, because you don't want to be the one that is scrambling to play catch up when reality does catch up with all of us eventually.
And just to add a little cherry on top of that, not to put any more pressure on you to find your own self-worth and validation, don't you think that this climate is exactly what our enemies would want to see? A destabilization within our own country? Because at the end of the day, you said Clinton, Obama, Bush's 1, 2, 7, 30,000. We all still identified ourselves as Americans. What do we identify ourselves at? No. Our political jurisdiction, mostly. I'm a fiscal libertarian, but I'm also a conservative socialist. At the end of the day, we're all American. At the end of the day, we all have to make this shit work. Whether the people that are at the helm are making it or driving it properly forward, or whether we just take the reins and make it drive forward. So what I will say is
or if you're in Australia, same thing for you, but within Australia.
Yeah, exactly. You guys have
We're very ecumenical on this podcast. Everybody putting their own country first.
Hey, guess what?
Going to be fine.
You want to be on our country list? Make us a ranking in your goddamn country, and then we'll start looking at you. Anyway, all I'm saying is this is it's eerie because this is the first time I've ever seen. I mean, not the first time, it's happened over a couple of years, but this is the first time I've ever seen or heard of America being not on the same team, not moving in the same direction, not believing in the same dream, and getting caught up in the minutia while forgetting where we're actually heading. So all I'll say is like, look in the mirror, do your own self-reflection, do it quick. But at the end of the day, if somebody is American, you're on their side. At the end of the day, you have to be. Otherwise, what are we doing here? This thing is going to dissolve right under our feet. And if you think it's fun right now, China looks really fucking scary. And we owe them a lot of money, don't we?
Yeah.
Holy fuck. I don't want to talk about that.
So if you have somebody in your life who needs to do a little thinking for themselves or maybe some self-reflection, we tried to keep this episode as non-combative as possible. Of course, we have, our criticisms of the people who for the last 2 years basically wanted to, are currently in terms of TikTok actively canceling us as we sit here right now, but especially also over the last 2 years, wanted to treat us like, basic common vermin. You can imagine that we might not have the closest of sympathies with those individuals, but our clarion call still goes out to them as well, to do their own thinking and maybe re-examine some of the conclusions they'd previously come to. So
there's no hate. There's just disappointment. We want you to make better decisions.
So if you have somebody in your life that needs to hear that message, please send them to wmdpodcast.com/113. Send them to any podcast catcher. Just type in...
Not TikTok, though.
Yes. Type in weapons of meme destruction and search for episode 113. They can also get the videos if they're video people on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and they can link up with us on Twitter and Instagram. David? No, TikTok. Now that was the time that you would say that.
I would. No, I wanted to try. I would try. If I let it pass, then it's moot. You have to say it within the moment.
Yeah,
it's called timing. It's called timing.
Anyway, so those are all the places to find us, and that's where you can get this message out to your friends and family. And we appreciate every effort that you make to do that. However, if you would like to contribute more directly to the ongoing success that is weapons of meme destruction, please go to wmdpodcast.com, go to the support our work tab. You can see your options there for how to support us. Or if you're watching this on those video platforms, you can look down in the description below. We'll have links where you can donate Bitcoin to us, you can donate money, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, as much as it makes David uncomfortable, if you want to have a going concern of getting your message out there, it costs money. And we can only bootstrap this thing for so long. So we appreciate your direct financial support. We appreciate your indirect support by subscribing, sharing, and telling friends and family about us. And with that being said, I'm going to let David give you his 1-2 as we sign out and move on to episode 114 next week.
Oh, you're talking about the sign out.
Yeah, the thing that
the
thing that you do. Yeah. That thing.
Oh, that thing?
That thing.
That thing I do?
Yeah.
It's a decent movie.
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
Okay.
Stay safe. But more importantly, guys, stay free.